The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Woo! The head coaching carousel has completely calmed down, but now we're having what we call the coordinator carousel, which happens usually after all the head coaches find new homes and whatnot. And as you know, the biggest story so far has been the University of Alabama and Pete Golden's defense. He's the defensive coordinator at Alabama. He left for Ole Miss. We all know he was forced out. And there'll be some ninny nannies coming in here saying, "Oh, he was. You don't know that." Okay. Yeah. Anyway, he was forced out. But the big thing that a lot of people are forgetting in this coordinator carousel is that the University of Alabama's offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien, has also been under fire somewhat from the fan base and a lot of people this year. There are some questionable play calling that took place this year, but the man's scoring over 40 points in a lot of games. So I don't understand what the dismay is with Bill O'Brien with people. I mean, what else do you expect him to do? Score 60 points a game? But you'll get your wish, because February the 1st, his contract is up, and from what the sources are telling me is that Bill will be looking to get back in the NFL. So, Alabama, after they get a defensive coordinator, will be in the market February the 1st for an offensive coordinator. So, let's talk about it. Well, here we go again. The Outlaw Posse riding in. Time for another episode of the OCF. That's the Outlaw of College Football. That's me, JPC, also known as Jesse Paul Clark on Facebook, spelled Jesse without the I. Also on Twitter at OCF Productions. I think next time I'm going to try to do it like an auctioneer, see how fast I can say it without tripping over my tongue. Had me a 5-hour energy drink already this morning. As you can tell, I'm a little wired up. But today we're going to talk about the possibility of Bill O'Brien leaving the University of Alabama February the 1st when his contract is officially up. A lot of people have been dwelling on this whole defensive coordinator thing, as they should. That's the current opening in Alabama. But Bill O'Brien, from what I'm hearing, will be leaving the University of Alabama after February 1st for maybe a job in the NFL, possibly going back to Bill Belichick and the Patriots or some other NFL team. So who will be the candidates to replace him? I've seen very, very interesting names out there for this coordinator job as well from numerous sources out there. Tide 100.9 is one of them. Check them out. On 3 is also a good source that I have been referencing, as well as 247 Sports. But here is the top 7. Now, a couple of these are my choices, outside the box kind of thinking, which I want you guys and gals to give me your outside the box kind of thinking, because y'all be coming up with some great candidates that I didn't even be thinking about until you say it, because this is the home of the common Joe and the common Sally. No, even more so than all those media talking heads. Love saying that. I used to say it all the time. All right. The number one name that's been popping up so far that's really interesting to me is Frank Reich. As you know, he's a former Super Bowl quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. He is also the former offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles during their Super Bowl run, in which they were 3rd in points per game. As you know, recently he was the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts, but their owner or GM or whatever his name is, Chris Ballard, basically handcuffed Frank in the fact that he didn't go out and try to draft the man a quarterback. This is a guy that used to be a quarterback and pretty much an offensive-minded coach, and you don't go out and get him a quarterback to try to make it a successful stint, which is going to come back and haunt Chris Ballard and the Colts. I think Frank Reich has a lot of potential. I think if he comes down here with Nick Saban, takes over the offensive coordinator's job, does really well for 3 or 4 years, you know, the Saban car wash washes all those ills away. Well, most of the time. And Frank Reich will be back as a head coach in some capacity, probably back in the NFL, after he comes down here and does a 3 or 4 year stint with Saban, if he ends up being the guy they hire. I think it would be a great hire. The other one is Joe Brady. He's the former offensive coordinator at LSU. As you know, he came in and he took over and turned Joe Burrow from a middling, mid-card type quarterback to now an NFL franchise quarterback with the Cincinnati Bengals. Won a national championship with Ed Orgeron as the jester coach. How they won a national championship with that dude as a head coach, I don't know. Well, I do know. Ed was at least smart enough to bring in and delegate his coordinatorship stuff to pretty good guys in Dave Aranda and Joe Brady. Those two coordinators won that national championship for LSU, and after they departed, we saw how good former friend impersonator Ed Orgeron was. LSU they're gonna be good. I can barely understand anything that dude said, but that's neither here nor there. Joe Brady, very good offensive coordinator in the NFL. Sometimes you get put somewhere where you really can't control who your personnel are, and that's where a lot of coaches discover that maybe they're more suited for college football, because in college football you can actually control your personnel better and get guys in that you evaluate, not some guy in the office that thinks he knows more than you do just because he's the owner of the GM and because he never did work out as a football player or as a football coach, but he has a lot of money doing other things, and now he wants to be in control of the situation. And I think that's what's happened with Joe Brady. I think, though, if Joe Brady come back to college, Alabama would be a good spot for him. I also think, just like with Frank Reich, if he came to Alabama, honed his skills a little bit, got back into the game of college football for about 3 or 4 years, he could be a head coach somewhere one day. Also mentioned is Casey Woods, the offensive coordinator at SMU. At SMU, he's averaged 40.2 points per game and 480 yards per game as the offensive coordinator at SMU. So, here lately, getting coaches from SMU seems to have worked out. I mean, just look what happened with TCU getting Sonny Dykes. He hasn't proven himself against top-tier defenses yet. But like I said, the SMU connection here as of late has seemed like a successful formula for hiring. So Nick Saban, I think, has Casey Woods on his radar. Also mentioned was Kendall Briles. As you know, he helped develop Arkansas's once dead offense. Really got their quarterback looking really good this year until he got injured. I think his name's KJ Jefferson. His father was an offensive genius mind as well, Art Briles, until he ran into some nefarious things at Baylor with girls and whatnot getting raped and them covering the stuff up. Don't matter how good of a coach you are, if you're doing that stuff in real life and outside the program, you're not good for anybody to be around. And I think that hurt Art Briles a lot. And I think there's some things that's just hard to overcome. And it even leaves a stain somewhat on his son in a way, which is unfair. Kendall Briles should be judged upon being Kendall Briles and not being the son of Art Briles. And I think that Nick Saban may indeed look at Kendall Briles, and Nick Saban can look past that kind of stuff. He's good at evaluating not just players, like I've said before, but evaluating assistant coaches and grooming them to be better as far as maybe one day being a head coach. Also, another name that's been mentioned a lot, and one I don't like, is Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen, while he was a pretty good offensive mind while he was at Mississippi State, has too many skeletons in the closet, along with that bunny humping wife of his that goes around kissing players on the mouth. They're just a little too eccentric for me, a little too shady. So please stop the Dan Mullen talk. Now, these are a couple of guys that I come up with. Warren Ruggiero is the Wake Forest offensive coordinator, one of the most prolific offenses in Wake Forest history. Was hands-on with star Sam Hartman. I think Sam has transferred. I'm not sure where he transferred, but If you can develop an offense and quarterbacks at Wake Forest, one of the smallest budgets in college football, as I've mentioned numerous times, you're a pretty good coach. So I think that if Nick Saban and Alabama haven't thought about this guy, if someone would please whisper in their ear the name Warren Ruggiero, because I think he would be a good candidate. All right, and the last guy that I put on here on my out-of-box list is Jim Sabato, the Tulane offensive coordinator that led them from 2-10 to 11-2 this year, and a huge upset of the USC Skittle Shitters on a national stage in Jerry World in Dallas. If you can come in and take over a 2-10 team and bring them to 11-2, and even, putting 46 points on a top 10 team on a national stage, I think you need to be considered for a bigger job at a bigger program. And like I said, just like the rest of these coaches, who knows? He could develop into a possible head coaching candidate 3 or 4 years down the road. And that's all the candidates I have for today. If you guys and gals don't mind, there's a little heart option down here. If you don't mind, hit that. It says thanks. Hit that. Throw me a few dollars in the coffers. Help me get off this YouTube teat so I don't have to worry about them censoring me. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.